The night didn't feel late. It felt like the city had stepped away for a moment and forgotten to come back. Outside, the industrial block was still. No traffic, no voices, just the faint hum of distant power lines and the occasional flicker of a streetlight fighting to stay alive. The diner's neon sign buzzed softly in the window, washing the empty parking lot in dull red. Inside, everything moved slower than it should. A clock ticked too loud on the wall. 2:17 a.m. Behind the counter, a 25-year-old waitress wiped the same spot again and again. Not because it was dirty, but because her mind was somewhere else. A folded notice sat beside the register. Final notice. Her name is printed in bold.
She didn't look at it. Didn't need to. She already knew what it said. The diner was almost empty. One man sat in the far corner booth, head low, picking at his food like he wasn't hungry. The TV above him played something muted, just moving faces and flashing colors with no sound. It felt like the kind of night where nothing happens. The kind of night that stretches too long. Until the back door opened. Not slammed. Not forced. Opened. Slow. Deliberate. The soft creak cut through the silence sharper than any noise. She didn't turn immediately, but her body reacted. A small tension in her shoulders. A pause in her hands. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Uneven. Dragging.
Something brushed against metal. A dull scrape echoed from the kitchen. That was enough. She stepped out from behind the counter, moving cautiously toward the hallway. "Kitchen's closed," she called out, voice steady, but not confident. No answer. Another step. Then, she saw him. At first, her mind didn't process it properly. A man stood in the doorway between the kitchen and storage area. Tall. Broad. Still. Too still. His head was slightly lowered, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. For a second, she thought he was just another drunk who'd wandered in through the wrong door. Then she saw his shirt. Dark. Wet. Not water. Blood. A lot of it. Her breath caught. "Hey!" He moved. One slow step forward. Then another. And that's when she noticed what he was holding. Not a bag. Not a jacket. Something smaller. Wrapped. Two of them. Her brain resisted the truth for half a second longer. Then one of the bundles shifted. A tiny hand slipped free, fingers twitching in the air. Her entire body went cold. No. He took one more step. Then everything gave out. His legs folded beneath him, and he dropped hard to the floor. But even as he fell, his arms locked tighter around the bundles, twisting his body mid-impact so they never touched the ground. Not even for a second. The sound echoed. Then, silence. She ran. "What are you... Hey, can you hear me?" She dropped beside him, hands hovering for a second before finally touching his shoulder. Warm. Too warm. His breathing was shallow, uneven. Each inhale is shorter than the last. And the blood, it wasn't slowing. Her eyes darted to the bundles. Carefully, she pulled back the edge of one blanket. A baby. Then a second. Another. Twins. Newborns. Too small. Too quiet. They weren't crying. They should have been crying. Instead, they just watched. Tiny eyes half open, unfocused, but alive. One of them curled its fingers instinctively and wrapped them around the man's thumb, holding on. Even now. Her chest tightened. Okay, I'm calling someone. His hand snapped up. It caught her wrist before she could move. Not strong, not fast, but precise. Like he knew exactly where she'd be. No. The word was barely there. She froze. "You're bleeding," she said, her voice sharper now.
You need an ambulance. No police. His eyes opened, and everything changed. They weren't the eyes of a dying man. They were clear, focused, watching her, measuring her. No hospitals, he added. Quieter, but heavier. Her pulse spiked. That wasn't fear talking. That was control. Even like this. You don't get to decide that, she shot back. You're not going to make it. I will. The certainty in his voice didn't match his condition. Didn't match the blood. Didn't match reality. And that was the first thing that didn't make sense. A soft sound broke the tension. One of the babies shifted again, letting out the smallest breath of a whimper. Her attention snapped instantly. Hey, it's okay. She didn't even realize she said it. Didn't realize she reached out until the baby's tiny hand brushed against her finger and stilled. Calm. Just like that. She blinked. That's not normal. The man was watching her now. Not the room, not the door. Her. Why are they so quiet? She asked, almost to herself. He didn't answer, but his grip on them tightened slightly. Protective. Possessive. Final. Then, he leaned closer, just enough for his voice to reach her. Keep them safe. The words were rough, broken, but deliberate. Not a request. A transfer. Something passed from him to her in that moment, and neither of them said it out loud. She swallowed. You're not making sense. A shadow moved across the front window. Her head snapped up. Headlights. Slow. Too slow. A black SUV rolled past the diner. Not stopping. Not speeding. Just looking. Her stomach dropped. That's your ride? She asked quietly. No response. His eyes didn't even flick toward the window, which told her everything. Another set of lights appeared in the distance. Closer this time. Her mind started connecting things she didn't want to understand. Gunshot. No police. No hospital. Men who don't rush. Men who search. She stood abruptly. Can you move? She asked. Silence. She didn't wait. She slid her arm under his shoulder, trying to pull him up. He was heavier than she expected. Dead weight pressing against her as she dragged him backward. Come on, come on! The babies shifted slightly, but didn't cry. Didn't panic. Just stayed close to him. Like they trusted him. That didn't make sense either. She got him through the narrow storage doorway, kicking it shut behind her. The room was tight, cluttered with boxes and shelves stacked too high. Good. Hidden. For now. She lowered him against the wall. His head dropped forward, breathing slower. Too slow. She grabbed a stack of clean cloths and pressed them hard against the wound. Blood soaked through instantly. Stay with me, she muttered. More command than plea. His eyes opened again. Barely. But enough. Why? She started, her voice low, almost frustrated now. Why are you still holding them like that? You can barely breathe. Because, he whispered, each word costing him. They're still breathing. That hit harder than anything else. Outside, a car door shut. Close. Closer than before. Her entire body went still. Listening. Waiting. Footsteps. Measured. Not rushing. Not loud. Confident. She looked at the door. Then back at him. Then at the babies. One of them shifted again, turning its face slightly toward her. like it knew she was looking. And for the first time, she felt it. Not fear. Not panic. Something else. Something heavier. If she walked away now, they wouldn't get a second chance. Any of them. She exhaled slowly, decision settling in before she could question it. "No police," she whispered. Her hands steadied. Her movements sharpened. "Then we do this my way." Outside, the footsteps stopped. Right in front of the diner. And inside, without realizing it, she had just stepped into something far bigger than a wounded stranger. Because whoever that man was, they hadn't come to check if he was alive. They had come to make sure he wasn't. The storage room door clicked shut. Not loud, not dramatic, but it felt final, like the world on the other side no longer mattered. Inside, the air was tighter, warmer, filled with the smell of cardboard, old inventory, and something sharper now. Blood. She pressed harder against the wound. "Stay with me," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to him or herself. No response. Just the slow, uneven rise and fall of his chest. Too slow. Too controlled. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. People in pain panic. They breathe fast. They lose control. He didn't. Even now. Even bleeding out on a diner floor. His breathing stayed measured. Deliberate. Like he'd been here before. Her hands moved faster. She grabbed the small first aid kit from the shelf, ripping it open. Gauze, alcohol wipes, tape. Not enough. Not even close. But it would have to be. She peeled back part of his blood-soaked shirt and froze. The wound was clean. Too clean. A single entry point, precise, slightly angled. No tearing, no chaos. This wasn't random. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was a shot meant to kill. Professional. Her stomach tightened. "Who did this to you?" she muttered under her breath. His eyes flickered open. Not fully, just enough to register her. He didn't answer. But he didn't look confused either, which was its own kind of answer. A soft sound broke the moment. One of the babies shifted again, letting out a faint, restless breath. She glanced over quickly. "They need something," she said. His head moved slightly. Barely. But instinctively, he shifted his body. Even injured. Even barely conscious. He adjusted himself so that his shoulder pressed closer to them. His arm formed a barrier between them and the door. She noticed that. Felt it. Stored it away. You don't do that unless you expect something to come through that door. Her chest tightened. Okay, just hold on. She reached for a bottle of water and a small carton of milk from a nearby crate. Leftover stock. Not ideal. Not safe. But better than nothing. She wrapped part of a clean cloth, dipping it carefully, then bringing it to one baby's lips. At first, nothing. Then, a tiny movement. The baby latched instinctively, drawing what little moisture it could. Alive. Fighting. The second one followed. Quiet. Too quiet. "They don't cry," she whispered, almost unnerved. "They should be crying." They learned not to. His voice cut through the room. Low. Rough. But clearer now. She turned to him. "You're awake." His eyes were opened fully this time. Dark. Sharp. And not just looking at her. Scanning. The corners of the room. The door. The ceiling. Calculating. Always calculating. "You're losing blood," she said. "You shouldn't be talking." He ignored that. "Lights," he said instead. She frowned. "What?" "Front lights. Turn them off." She hesitated. "Why?" A beat. Then, "They'll look in first." Her pulse jumped. "They?" she repeated. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. She moved. Fast. Through the narrow hallway, into the main diner. Her hands reached up, flipping the switches one by one. The neon glow dimmed. The diner fell into shadow. The man in the booth looked up, confused, annoyed. "We're closed," she said quickly. He didn't argue. Didn't ask questions. Just grabbed his jacket and left. The bell above the front door chimed softly as it shut. Then, silence. She locked it, turned. And that's when she saw them. Across the street. A black SUV. Parked now. Engine still running. Another one pulled up behind it. No rushing. No chaos. Just presence. Her breath slowed. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." She stepped back into the kitchen, closing the hallway door behind her. "They're here," she said quietly. He didn't react. Not outwardly. But his arm tightened slightly around the twins. Protective. Always protective. "You need to move," she said. "Deeper in. There's a supply crawl space behind the shelves." He shook his head. Small. Controlled. No. Her frustration flared. "You don't have a lot of options right now." "I don't leave them. I'm not asking you to. They stay with me." The finality in his voice shut her up. For a second. Then, "You can't even stand," she snapped. "How are you going to protect them like this?" Silence. Then, "I already am." That answer hit differently. She didn't argue again. Instead, she moved the shelves herself, just enough to create a tighter shadow, a deeper pocket of concealment. Then she dragged a crate in front. Obstructed view. Not perfect, but better. Outside, a car door shut. Closer this time. Her heartbeat picked up again. Inside, he adjusted his position. Slowly. Painfully. But deliberately. He shifted so that his back was fully to the wall, and his body angled toward the door. Between the entrance and the twins. Even now. Even like this. Her eyes stayed on him longer this time. Not fear. Not exactly. Recognition. Of something she hadn't expected. "You're not what I thought," she said quietly. His gaze flicked to her. "What did you think?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "A criminal." "I am. No denial, no defense, just truth. And somehow, that made it worse. Or maybe clearer." She exhaled, glancing at the babies again as she adjusted the cloth in their hands. "They don't seem to care. They don't know what I am." "They know something," she murmured. "Babies always do." Silence stretched between them. Thick. Heavy. Then, his voice. Quieter this time. "Why are you helping me?" The question landed harder than she expected. She didn't answer right away. Her hands kept moving. Adjusting. Cleaning. Holding things together that shouldn't be holding together. Finally, "Because no one helped me when I needed it." The words came out flat. Simple. But real. He watched her. Not casually. Not politely. Intensely. Like he was trying to see past what she said, into what she didn't. Her jaw tightened slightly under his gaze. "What?" she asked. He didn't answer, but something in his expression shifted. Subtle. Barely there. Recognition. or something close to it, like he'd seen something familiar. He held that look a second longer than necessary. Then he looked away, back to the door, back to the threat. Like the moment hadn't happened. But it had. She felt it. And she didn't understand it. Outside, footsteps approached. Slow. Measured. Not searching. Certain. Her breath caught. Inside the cramped storage room, a wounded man who didn't panic. 2 silent babies who didn't cry. And a decision she couldn't undo. All sat in the dark.
And one question began to form, louder than the footsteps outside. If he really was what he claimed, if he really was that dangerous, then why? Why did he trust her at all?
The footsteps outside didn't rush. They circled. Measured. Patient. Certain. Inside the storage room, time stretched thin. The waitress didn't move at first. She stood frozen, listening to every shift of weight beyond the diner walls, every faint creak of the floorboards out front. Her pulse had settled into something slower now. Not calm, but focused. Survival had a rhythm, and she was starting to feel it. Behind her, his breathing steadied. Not stronger, just controlled. Like he had forced his body into submission. The babies shifted softly between them. One let out the faintest sound, more breath than cry. Still too quiet. Still too aware. She turned back toward him. Really looked this time. Not just the blood. Not just the danger. The way he held them. Even now. Even when no one was touching them. His hand rested lightly over both blankets. Not gripping. Not restraining. Just there. Present. Guarding. It didn't match anything else about him. And that was what pushed her over the edge. Enough. Her voice cut through the tight space. Low, but firm. He looked up. Slowly. She stepped closer. Close enough now that the truth couldn't hide behind silence. "Who are you?" she said. Each word deliberate. "And whose babies are these?" The question sat between them. Heavy. Demanding. For a moment, he said nothing. His eyes didn't leave hers. Didn't deflect. Didn't soften. But something behind them shifted. A calculation ending. A decision beginning. "You don't want that answer," he said quietly. "I already do," she shot back. "Because whatever this is, it's not random. And those men outside," she glanced toward the door, "they didn't come for you by accident." No. The word was simple. Final. He exhaled slowly. And when he spoke again, something changed. Not his voice. His weight. His presence. "I run this city," he said. No arrogance, no pride. Just fact. Her expression didn't change, but something in her chest tightened. "Not the parts people see," he continued. "The parts they pretend don't exist. Shipping, money, ports, routes." His eyes flicked briefly to the side, as if mapping it all in his head. "Every deal that doesn't make the news goes through me." Silence filled the space. "You saying you're—" "Yes." He didn't let her finish. Didn't need to. Her stomach dropped. Everything about him snapped into place now. The control, the wound, the men outside, the refusal to call anyone. And yet, she looked at the twins, then back at him. "That doesn't explain them." His gaze shifted. Not to her, to the babies. For the first time since she'd seen him, something cracked. Small, barely visible, but real.
"They're not mine," he said. She frowned. "Then why?" "They're hers." The words came quieter now. He adjusted slightly, wincing as the movement pulled against the wound. But he didn't stop.
"She wasn't supposed to be part of any of it," he continued. "She stayed away from my world, kept distance, kept clean." His jaw tightened faintly. "That's why she survived as long as she did. She died 3 hours ago." The air shifted. The waitress didn't speak, didn't interrupt, because something in his voice told her this wasn't a story he told. This wasn't something anyone heard. "She knew what I was," he said. "Still chose to stay." His eyes darkened slightly. "That was her mistake. Or her choice," the waitress said quietly. He didn't respond to that. "She called me," he went on. "Didn't explain, didn't panic, just told me to come." His breathing slowed again. Not from weakness, from memory.
"When I got there," his voice dropped. "It was already done." The words hung heavy, unfinished, but complete. "Those men?" she asked. "They weren't after her," he said. "They were after what she had." He looked down at the twins again. Understanding hit her slowly. Cold. "They want them?" she asked. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I care." The answer was immediate, brutal. "They can't control me," he added, "but they can control what I won't let die." Silence pressed in again. She looked at the babies. Small, fragile, unaware of the weight placed on them. "They're leverage," she whispered. "They're targets." That landed harder. She swallowed. "Before she died," he continued, voice quieter now, rougher, "she made me promise something." His hand shifted slightly over the blankets. "Not tightening, just there. Protect them," he said, repeating the words carefully. "Don't let them become like you." The room went still. The waitress felt something twist in her chest. "And you agreed?" she asked. I didn't answer. That surprised her. "Why not?" His gaze lifted back to hers. "Because for the first time, there was doubt there. Because I don't know how to do that." That was the truth. Not the power. Not the violence. That. "I don't know how to raise anything that doesn't break," he said quietly. "I don't know how to protect something without turning it into what I am." The honesty of it hit harder than anything else he'd said. She looked down again. One of the babies stirred. A small sound escaped, closer to a cry this time. Instinct took over. She reached down, lifting the baby carefully into her arms. For a second, it fussed, restless, uncertain. Then, it stilled. Completely. Its tiny hand pressed lightly against her chest. Calm. She glanced up at him. "They're not afraid of you," she said softly. His expression didn't change, but his eyes did. They should be. They don't know fear yet. They will. Not if you keep doing this. That made him pause. Doing what? She shifted the baby slightly, adjusting her hold. Choosing them. Silence followed. Longer this time. Deeper. He watched her differently now. Not assessing, not calculating. Seeing. For the first time. Not as a random stranger. Not as a risk. Something else. Something he hadn't expected. "Why are they calm with you?" he asked. She didn't look at him when she answered. "Because I'm not trying to control them." That landed, harder than anything else. Outside,
A car engine started, then another. The low hum faded slowly into the distance. The pressure eased, but didn't disappear. Inside the diner, something shifted. Subtle, but permanent. The danger hadn't left. The problem hadn't solved itself.
But the question had changed. This wasn't just about surviving the night anymore. It was about what came after. He looked at her again, longer this time. And when he spoke, his voice carried something new. Not authority, not command. Decision. I can keep them alive, he said. But I think you can keep them human. The words settled between them. And in that moment, without saying it out loud, everything changed.
Morning didn't arrive all at once. It slipped in, quiet, careful. Through the edges of the diner windows where the neon glow had finally died. The street outside looked different now. Still empty, still cold, but no longer watching. The night had passed, but it hadn't ended anything. Inside, the air had changed. The tension wasn't sharp anymore. It was heavy, settled. The waitress stood near the counter, one of the twins resting against her shoulder. The baby's breathing was soft, steady now. Small fingers curled loosely into the fabric of her shirt. Alive. That alone felt like a victory. Behind her, a chair scraped lightly against the tile. She turned. He was standing. Not fully straight, not steady, but standing. For a moment, it didn't feel real. Hours ago, he had been on the floor, bleeding out, barely conscious. Now he held himself upright, one hand braced against the counter, the other pressing firmly against his side where fresh bandages held back what little strength he had left. But it wasn't just that. Something else had returned. His presence. The room felt smaller around him again. Controlled. Owned. Like the version of him from the night, the one who didn't ask, didn't explain, had stepped back into place. "You shouldn't be up," she said quietly. "I don't have a choice." His voice was clearer now. Stronger. Not healed, but functional. He stepped forward slowly, each movement measured, like he was recalibrating himself with every breath. Then, he reached into his coat. Her body tensed instinctively, but he only pulled out a phone. Dark, clean, unmarked. He stared at it for a second, then pressed a single button. It rang once. That was it. "Location sent," he said, voice flat. "Bring a clean team. No one else. 2 infants. Full protection protocol." His eyes flicked briefly toward her, then back down. "And prepare the house." Silence on the other end. Then, "I know what that means." The line went dead. He lowered the phone slowly, and just like that, something bigger had been set into motion. "You trust them?" she asked. "I trust control." That answer felt exactly like him. She shifted slightly, adjusting the baby in her arms. "So what happens now?" she asked. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at the twins. Really looked. Like he was seeing something for the first time he didn't understand how to measure. "I take them somewhere safe," he said finally. "Somewhere no one can reach." "That's it?" His gaze lifted. "That's everything." She studied him, then shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "That's protection. Not everything." Something unexpected. He didn't argue. Didn't correct her. Instead, he stepped closer. Slow. Careful. Stopping just a few feet away. "I can protect them from the world," he said quietly. His eyes dropped to the baby in her arms. then to the one resting against the counter where he had placed it earlier. But I can't give them what they need.
The honesty in that landed heavier than anything else. She didn't respond, didn't know how, because part of her already understood what he meant. He glanced back up at her, and this time, there was no distance in his gaze, no calculation, just clarity. "Come with us." The words were simple, but they changed everything. Her breath caught slightly. "What?" "Come with us," he repeated. "Not for me." His eyes shifted briefly toward the twins. "For them." She stared at him. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." "That's not how this works," she said, shaking her head. "You don't just walk into someone's life and—" "You walked into mine," he cut in. Silence. That stopped her. He took another step closer. "You didn't call anyone," he said. "You didn't run. You didn't ask what it would cost you." His gaze sharpened slightly. "You chose them before you understood anything about me." Her grip on the baby tightened slightly. "That doesn't mean I belong in your world. It means they belong with you." That hit differently, deeper. She looked down at the baby in her arms, then at the other one, then back at him. "And what would I be?" she asked quietly. His answer came without hesitation. "The one thing I can't be for them. Safe." Silence stretched between them. Not tense, not pressured, just real. Before she could respond, a small movement broke it. The second baby stirred. A soft sound escaped, closer to a real cry this time. He turned, instantly, without thinking. His body moved before his mind caught up. He reached down, then stopped. His hand hovered just above the blanket, hesitating, like he didn't trust himself to do it right. She watched him, didn't say anything, didn't step in, just waited. Slowly, he tried again. This time, his hand slid under the baby, lifting carefully, awkward at first, unsure, but steady. The baby shifted, then settled, calm. Its tiny hand pressed against his chest, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. He looked down at it, really looked. Not as something to protect, not as something to guard, but as something fragile, something real, something his world had no place for. Until now. His grip adjusted. More natural this time. More certain. Less like a weapon holding something. More like someone learning how not to break it. The waitress felt something shift in her chest. Subtle, but undeniable. Outside, engines approached. Low, controlled. Multiple vehicles. She glanced toward the window. Black SUVs pulled into the lot one by one. Doors opened. Men stepped out. Sharp suits. Still faces. Disciplined. The world he came from had arrived. He didn't look away from the baby. "Time," he said quietly. She swallowed, then nodded. Neither of them said anything else. They didn't need to. He turned toward the door, holding the baby carefully against his chest. Different now. Not just carrying, holding. She followed, the second twin resting against her shoulder. The front door unlocked with a soft click, then opened. Morning light spilled in. Clean, unforgiving, real. The men outside straightened immediately, every movement precise, every eye on him, on the babies, on her. But no one spoke. No one questioned. They already understood. He stepped forward first. She followed. The space around them shifted instantly. Guards forming, doors opening, the outside world reshaping itself around his presence. But something was different this time.
It wasn't just about him anymore. He stopped beside the SUV, turned slightly, looked at her. Not as a stranger, not as a risk, as part of the decision he had made. His voice was calm, quiet, but absolute. From now on, he glanced down at the baby in his arms, then back at her. They're untouchable. The doors opened, and the war that started in silence finally had something worth fighting for.